Hi, welcome. We're glad to be with you today on behalf of CADCA. We're going to be talking to you today about your brain, your future, and kind of how those interact and some things we may or may not think about substances in your brain. My name's Nigel Wrangham, and here with me,
Hello, my name is Rebekah.
we're glad to be here. And let's get started talking about the most important organ in your body, and you can all see it there if you're looking at the screen, and that's right, it is our brain. And if we talk about our brain, one of the things we want to remember is that our brain, just like our bodies, just like everything that we have, is made up of chemicals. Billions of cells and chemicals. Our brain has chemicals in it to make us happy, chemicals in it to determine how we feel, what we see, what we hear, all of our state of consciousness. It's all chemicals in the brain. What we're going to do for the next couple of minutes is focus in on one of those chemicals that's especially important for our discussion with you today, and that is the chemical dopamine. Now, many of you have probably heard this before or seen the word dopamine. It's the chemical in our brain, for our purposes, that makes us feel good. This is a chemical that our brain manufactures and releases inside our brain to make us feel happy, rewarded. It's like our brain's way of saying, that was a good thing to do it again. I'm going to make you love it so much that you can't wait to do it again. That's dopamine. It's a good thing we have dopamine. Some problems can happen if we have too much, which we'll talk about. But why do we have this pleasure chemical? What's the point of it? Well, the point is because there are things in life that are supposed to feel good. Things like playing with friends, having a good time with people that we care about, seeing a loved one if you've been away from them, eating good food, and just having a fun time with someone you care about. All these things are good for us, so our brain rewards us for experiencing them. And when we're growing up, really about until the mid-20s, 25, 26, our brains have this dopamine and feeling and emotion part a little bit stronger than they have this other part. And that's the part up here in the front of our forehead. That's the little thinking guy there. We have a structure in our brain that kind of puts the brakes on dopamine and the other feeling chemicals. It's a structure that essentially tells us, hang on, is it a really good idea to play and celebrate right now? Is it a good idea to be so scared of this? Let's take a step back. Let's consider our options. Let's think if we ever encountered this before so we can make a choice based on that. All that kind of rational thinking part. That part is still being built until we're in our mid-20s. It's there, but it's kind of struggling to find its job. So that dopamine and the other feeling chemicals, they're in there, and the thinker is in there, and what our brains are trying to do is achieve and maintain a state of balance. So now let's add substances and see what happens to that balance. Well, now the person who owns this brain is taking all sorts of chemicals and substances to give them dopamine when they didn't really earn it. They got dopamine just from putting a drug in their body, not from being with their friends, not from eating good food, not from accomplishing anything, not from winning at sports, not from seeing a loved one, just from changing the chemistry in their brain. So that brain's getting all cluttered with dopamine, dopamine, good, good, good. The brain's telling itself, this must be good for us. It feels good, we must do it again. We better do it again. And meanwhile, look at the poor little thinker in the front. The thinker's going, wait a minute, isn't anyone listening to me? You're not even 25 yet. I'm still being built. I need to get my voice in. So really, what's happened to that balance? It's out of whack. The emotions and feelings and reward, which are good for us when they're natural, are now harmful because they're unnatural and there's too much of it. So our thinker, it can hardly compete anymore. It's in there going, I guess I don't have a job, because now feelings of fear, feelings of needing more of the drug, feelings of anger because you can't get it, feelings of panic because you need it, feelings of pleasure because it's in there. All that is kind of like this dysfunctional feeling party going on inside the brain, where that poor thinker at this point doesn't stand a chance, especially if we're still developing, especially if we're not 25 yet and that thinker's still trying to get its job done. So that's addiction. This brain, at this point, the person who owns this brain would need some help because they've got this jumble of overemphasized feelings going on and a tiny little thinker that really can't get a word in. Now, the help that that brain can get is available. There is a lot of stopping addiction, there's treating addiction, there's all sorts of medical and otherwise treatments, and that's great. But the best possible one is not to let it happen in the first place. Maintain that balance by staying drug-free, living your life, get your rewards naturally because they're good enough, and live your life. Thanks. Rebekah?
All right, thank you so much, Nigel. So now we're just going to discuss a couple of misconceptions of substance abuse and discuss the myths and truths behind these misconceptions. Firstly, we have cannabis is not harmful because it's a plant. So what is the truth behind this? Well, just because it's a plant does not necessarily mean it's harmless. We see here that cocaine, heroin, and opium are all drugs that are derived from plants, but we know that these are well established as harmful substances. As well, some plants are toxic. So as we can see in this left corner here, this plant here, it looks really beautiful. It has these nice purple flowers and it has a greenery in the background. However, this is the belladonna plant. And for those of you who don't really know much about the belladonna plant, it is actually one of the most toxic plants on earth. And here is just a portrait from the Renaissance era of a woman who ingested and died from the belladonna plant. But this just goes to show that just because something is a plant does not necessarily mean that it is beneficial or that it is harmless to your health. So on to our next myth. Here we have vaping is safer than smoking. And what is the truth behind this one? Well, in vapes, we can find over 80 chemicals, and vape aerosols, which is what is inhaled when vaping, include harmful ingredients like heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead, diacetyl, which is a chemical linked and associated with lung disease, as well as fine particles and shards. So on the left here, we see it within this picture, this is diacetyl being made, which is the harmful chemical associated with lung disease. And on the right, these are just some metal particles and shards. And these just go to emphasize what is put in the lungs when vapes are used. So on to our next myth. Here we have drinking alcohol is not harmful to my health. Other countries legally allow for teenagers to drink. And the truth behind this is that your brain, just as Nigel emphasized before, isn't finished developing until around 25 or your mid-20s. As well, other countries have different cultures, and culture is not objective. So this just means that other countries or other cultures might value different things, might emphasize different practices. However, we can't compare those to our own, and we can't say that one is necessarily right or wrong. And third, protect your brain. You have amazing ideas, you have lovely brains, so it is important to protect them as much as possible. And now on to our final myth. So here, our final myth we have here is that driving high is safer than driving drunk. And the truth is that it is never safe to drive under the influence of anything. And we know that this is a really harsh picture that we have right here of a motor vehicle accident. But it is important to emphasize and to remember that it is never safe to drive while you have substances within your system or while you are under the influence of any substance. And now we're just going to tell a little story. So we're going to start with Anna's story. And as we can see here, pictured all the way to the left, Anna is a young girl. She's around in 8th grade. And when she's around this age, her friends start influencing for her to smoke and to drink. So she does this for a few years, and fast forward a little bit, and now she's in high school, and she's still hanging out with that same crowd, and they're still influencing her to smoke and drink. However, the difference is that now that she's in high school, they start using harder drugs and start influencing her to do so as well. And now that she's older, we see that she has the opportunity to have commitments such as sports. Maybe she can work a job now, clubs at her school. She's starting to think about college and grades. However, because she's so involved in using substances, we see that these are not priorities or commitments within Anna's life currently. And we end this story with a question mark. And some of you might be thinking like, why a question mark? Well, the reason why that there's a question mark here is because of Anna's choices, because of the decisions that she's decided to make. It's going to be a lot harder for her to make choices that are healthier. She still has those choices to become healthier and to make decisions that are healthier for her, but that is going to be a lot harder. So currently, the end to her story is unknown. And so now I'm just going to share a little bit about myself and my own personal journey. So to the left, this is a photo of me when I was in 8th grade. Horrifying, I know. Anyways, so I too, I had some friends that influenced me to do some things, but the things that my friends influenced me to do and start getting involved in was coalition work. So I am from the Chicagoland area, and this is my community coalition, which is called Stand Strong. And I started being involved with them and working with them when I was around 8th grade and when I was around 13 years old. So these next few photos you see here, as I got into high school, so fast forward, now I'm a little bit older. This top photo, I'm with my friends and we're at a radio station just talking about the influence of an impact of substance abuse on our community. And then this bottom photo, I am doing some policy work in my state capital where we got the opportunity to talk to representatives as well as senators just about the impact of recreational marijuana. And so now this was a photo that I actually took a few days ago. It was an impromptu photo shoot in my bedroom. But I am now a senior in high school. I'm thinking about colleges. I'm involved in a sport at school. I'm involved in a couple clubs. And best of all, I work at the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, CADCA, and this is kind of where I am in my journey, and this is kind of where I am in my story right now. So I got involved in youth engagement, which is something that we can all be involved in, and it's just to go to show that like you can make choices that are healthy for you and that really embrace what you are passionate about. So the world needs you and your ideas, and we encourage you to become a part of this youth engagement. And this can be becoming engaged in anything. So an example we have here is becoming engaged in substance abuse prevention, like myself, which may include examples like policy work, advocacy, or creating change within your own hometowns on a community level. And then finally, it is just important to remember that becoming engaged in something that you specifically are passionate about, whether this might be something with social justice, perhaps it's something with your religion, but it is important to be engaged and be working in something that you really feel strongly about. And with all that being said, thank you so much for coming today. We had a lot of fun putting this together and getting to just let you guys know of all about this. So thank you so much for spending a little bit of your day with us.
Yes, thank you. On behalf of CADCA, both of us, we hope to see some of you as CADCA trainers working like this with us in the near future. And I bet we will. Don't you think so, Rebekah?
I absolutely think so, Nigel.
Okay. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you